Oh, hello, everybody. I guess it should be a happy new year. First live stream of the year, January 9th, 2025. I am Brian with Maximum Libertarian. It's an early morning stream. I was looking online. I saw Rumble, and they have their new studio. And I said, let me just try it out. You know what I'm saying? I want to see. It looks very similar to uh, StreamYard. That's what I usually use. It's now I know many of you, many podcast and vloggers and all that stuff probably say StreamYard's for the birds. It's blah blah blah. It's very simple. It's plug and play. I like it. I like this too. It's very similar to StreamYard. The only thing that I'm missing is I like the banner running across to remind you to follow me here on Rumble, to subscribe on X, to subscribe on YouTube. Click the notification bell so you'll always know when I go live. Later on today, I will be doing a podcast through Podbean. That's where you can, and then you can get the podcast from all your low places that you always get, like, Spotify, Apple, so forth, so on. Always, please go there and give us a quick 5-star review. Just lie. It's okay. Make people listen to us, and they'll just think, oh, well, this is going to be a good podcast to listen to, and then we'll trick them into hearing this nonsense. But so this morning, I was looking online. I saw this story. Many of you may or may not know there's another podcast that I used to do. Hopefully that in this new year we can get it rolling again, but it's called Potato Shot Podcast. And over on Potato Shot Podcast, we would talk about pop culture. We would talk about, but mainly our goal was to talk about professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. And I saw this story and I thought, this is a very interesting story. To me, it's a very interesting story. Maybe not to you, but just pretend it is interesting and click the like button, click that share button, as always. I definitely want to push that, this year I really want to see this channel grow. All right, but no, I was looking at the PFL. It's called Professional Fight League. It started in 2017. It had this idea that it would be a season, the winner, and it would be a tournament format, and then the winner would get $1 million at the end. Well, it came out recently. Let me pull up this presentation screen. There we go. And it says the final Nell fans react as PFL reportedly reduces the money in the tournament from $1 million to, it's going to be $500,000. And everyone's up in arms. Oh my gosh, the PFL, it's over. Dana White, the president of the UFC, the biggest MMA organization, he's right. I mean, it's very hard to fill these seats. But we'll talk about that after we just go through this real quick. The PFL continued to attempt to rival the UFC as a promotional powerhouse in the sport of MMA. And following some impressive signings in 2023, the acquisition of Bellator, things began to look promising. You had Francis Ngannou, who spent, after signing with PFL, about a year and a half fighting Tyson Fury, the former heavyweight champion of the world, and in some eyes beating that champion who was at the time the current champion. And then you had him fight Anthony Joshua, but on that end he got knocked out. If you listen to the stories, the way Eddie Herndon, the promoter and the organizers, they would have him, when you come to box, you got to warm up. And what they would do, they say, you got to be here at 2:00. We're going to go out there at 4:00. So you would warm up, be ready to go. And then, well, we've got we've got a half hour concert in front of you. So he cools down, but he really didn't need to be there until 5 o'clock. It was a whole bunch of shenanigans. And that's what he said caused him to be knocked out by Anthony Joshua. I don't know. But he hits like a Mack truck. That I do know that. So, but the PFL was attempting to rival UFC. And then, like it says here, they lost a lot of momentum because he continued to fight in boxing. He did not come over there when they bought Bellator. That fizzled pretty quickly. Fans were excited to see it, but then, of course, nothing really came about. Then it says, despite all this acquiring, you have current champions. They're flaming the PFL for not giving them fights. They're being sued by Gregor Masau. Look, I shouldn't even be saying it now. It's too early in the morning. Gregor Masawi, he's suing them because he's like, hey, I lost a lot of money because you never gave me any fights. And you can just look here. Like I said, this is at bloodyelbow.com. I want to make sure you see that. Go support them too. Despite all this, he told Bloody Elbow, this is Don Davis. He is the president of the PFL, that they have adjusted the season format in 2025. They're reducing it down to 500,000, and they're making some other adjustments supposedly to help with this out. Now, as you can see, fans react, reducing the $1 million thing. It says, although it's still to be announced, the PFL changes, making it to the regular season format. Fans have pessimistic reactions. One fan comment, I mean, it's over, right? This has to be the final nail. It might not be immediate, but PFL will never recover. Last year, the promotion launched the Super Fight division, which Ngannou went on to compete on. And it was claimed that the tournament prizes changes. We may see regular season littered with prospects and the bigger names left to compete on the Super Fight events with more money attached to that. It says here, Davis has relatively strange outbursts on LinkedIn recently, listing 5 bad things that happened to the promotion in 2024. PFL never made sense to me, and this is a step in the right direction. $500,000 is still a chunk of money. PFL will now be competing with GFL, which I believe is called Global Fight League, and they're supposedly going to and they're signing big names, and they're supposedly going to be this be-all, end-all to save, the fighters' pay. If you watch The Rock, WWE superstar, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he talked about when he went into the meeting with Vince McMahon, and he said Vince asked him, he said it was contract time. He said, how much do you want to make? He said, how much is the highest paid wrestler making at the time, which was Stone Cold Steve Austin? He said, it's $1 million. He said, well, I would like to make $2 million. So Vince said, that's fine, but will you take about 90 days and go with the CFO, the chief financial officer, and just look at the books? So The Rock took them 90 days. He looked at it. He said 90 days later, he came back. He said, I'll take the $1 million. He said that year he made off merchandise and the contract and things, he made $15 million. I guess really what you want to be looking at is a lot of times people have this fantasy that someone being well off is free and clear, and that's all that that's, if it's X dollars, they can just throw it up in the air and X dollars will just appear in front of them again. That's not the way it works. Now, granted, I wish I had the money of a McMahon or The Rock or PFL or whoever, Dana White. But I'm also not silly enough to think that you can just get paid these exorbitant fees, but you're not bringing no revenue in. You're not bringing in ticket sales. You're not bringing in ad revenue. You're not bringing in anything. So then what happens is a lot of times individuals rush in. They will milk a company, take everything they can, take all the china and silverware and bed sheets and towels, and they rush out after they strip the place, empty, and then you have nowhere to go. So in turn, I hope whoever is running the PFL, whoever's running the GFL, be smart. And I think you should focus on Dana, and UFC is right. You got to focus on the fighters. You focus on the company before the fighters. If the company sinks, you have nothing. And you're going to be in the world of boxing, and it's a hodgepodge of who's fighting who. Can the PFL succeed? Yes. One thing that I would like to see them do, I'd like to see them become regional and like a territory system, like in the old days of professional wrestling. You don't need a tour nationally. You can be on nationwide TV with ESPN or Fox Sports 1 or whoever. But you don't have to go to every major city in the country. Just focus on being good, making good fights, making good fighters, and stay in your little 4, 5, 6 states that you say this is where we're going to just travel, and this is where we'll get the biggest bang for our buck. That's just some of the things. That's one thing that I would immediately do, and I probably cut. You don't want to cut the big contracts because you want to keep names on your fight roster, but look at them and see how old they are. Everybody has, Father Time is undefeated in everything. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, was the PFL and how they're having to make strategy changes. And then it's almost like the Libertarian Party. We've hit that spot too, where we've got to figure out, you got to make a strategy change. Otherwise, you're taking on too much water and you're going to sink. But I do think that the PFL has the ability to turn itself around. There's just a few little things they got to do. Just don't expand too fast. Kenny Rogers Roasters, the wood that makes it good. It's the wood that makes it good, Jerry. He expanded too fast. A lot of restaurants expand too fast. Businesses, and they will fail really quick. You have big contracts, you have insurance and things of that nature. There's things that we don't even talk about that businesses have to handle, that they get to deal with. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, all these taxes that go to the wonderful government that completely destroys your life. Just ask the people out there in California. And now insurance companies are getting blamed for it. Surprise, surprise. But we'll talk about that later on today. When we do the podcast, I intend on doing a podcast here, live streaming it through Rumble X and YouTube, and then I'll be putting it up on Podbean. I hope you join us for it. Once I know the time, I'll schedule a thing here. But we're at the 15-minute mark. I just wanted to talk about the PFL. And I don't know. I feel like I'm a little rusty with my interviews with my discussions, but I do think that it was something interesting. If you're into MMA, PFL, they might be on the brink of failing, or they might be on the, right on the brink of rising up. That's what I think DLP's on. But that's a whole nother story. So join me here again on Rumble. So if you haven't, click the follow button. If you're ever on YouTube, click the subscribe button. If you're on X, click the follow button. I implore you. And until next time, I'm Brian with Maximum. I'm Brian with Maximum Libertarian, and we will talk to you later. See ya. Goodbye.